Close your eyes. Breathe slowly in and out. Tonight, we travel back to the very first moments of existence. To a time before cities, before oceans, before even the light of the stars. In this story we will follow the destinies of three brothers, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, whose lives were bound by prophecy, struggle, and eternal power. They were not just gods, they were forces of nature. And together they shaped the universe as we know it. But before they could reign, they had to survive. And their journey begins in the silence of the void. Close your eyes. Let the noise of the day drift away. And imagine, if only for a moment, the very beginning of everything. Before the sun rose, before the seas moved, before even the stars found their place in the sky, there was only chaos. Not chaos in the way we often use the word, not disorder, not noise, not confusion, but something deeper. A vast, endless void. An emptiness so absolute that time itself did not yet exist. It was silence so thick it pressed upon the soul. It was darkness so complete that even the thought of light seemed impossible. And yet, within that silence, within that void, there was potential. The potential for everything that was to come. From chaos, slowly shapes began to emerge. The first was Gaia, the earth. She was firm and fertile, the eternal mother. Her skin was soil and stone, her breath the wind that would one day nourish all living things. Upon her back rose mountains that touched the skies that did not yet exist, and within her womb stirred oceans waiting to be born. After Gaia came Uranus, the sky. He stretched vast and infinite above her, a canopy of deep blue, filled with the promise of stars. Each night, Uranus blanketed Gaia, covering her with his endless expanse. And in their embrace, the first generation of mighty beings was born, the Titans. The Titans were not like men nor like the gods we know. They were vast, colossal, living embodiments of power. They were mountains given breath, rivers given will, storms given voice. Among them one stood apart, not for his strength but for his cunning. This was Cronus, the youngest of the Titans, sharp-eyed and ambitious. Cronus watched his father Uranus with suspicion. He felt the weight of his father's authority pressing down upon him, stifling his own desires, his own will. And in his heart, the seed of rebellion began to grow. Gaia the earth felt this too. Though Uranus was her consort, she resented him. For Uranus, fearful of the power of his children, sought to imprison them within Gaia's own body, forcing them back into the womb of the earth, deep into the shadows. Each birth became a prison. Each child that Gaia brought forth was denied freedom, locked away in darkness beneath the mountains and seas. Her heart ached with the weight of her children trapped within her. And so, Gaia sought an end to her suffering. She forged a weapon, a sickle of sharp, unyielding stone, and she called upon her sons. "Who among you will rise against your father?" she asked. The Titans trembled, for to oppose Uranus was to oppose the heavens themselves. Only one stepped forward, Cronus. With cunning and courage, Cronus took the sickle in his hand. And one night, as Uranus descended once more to embrace Gaia, Cronus struck. With a single blow, he severed his father's power and cast him down. From that moment on, Cronus became the ruler of the cosmos. But the story did not end there. For as Uranus fell, he cursed his son with a prophecy. "As you have overthrown me, so too shall your own children rise against you." These words clung to Cronus like chains. Even in triumph he felt the cold grip of fear. And fear, once planted, grows quickly. Cronus took his sister Rhea as his queen, and together they began to fill the world with new life. But each time Rhea bore him a child, Cronus's fear deepened. He remembered the curse. He remembered the prophecy. And he resolved that no child of his would ever have the chance to rise against him. So, one by one as each infant was born, Cronus swallowed them whole. He devoured them in silence, their cries extinguished before they could echo across the world. First came Hestia, goddess of the hearth. Then Demeter, goddess of the harvest. Then Hera, who would one day become queen of Olympus. After her came Hades, grim and silent even in infancy. And then Poseidon, whose power was destined to command the seas. 5 children. 5 lives consumed in darkness. Rhea wept with each birth. Her arms were left empty, her heart heavy with grief. She begged Cronus for mercy, but his fear was stronger than her tears. Still, destiny is patient. And destiny does not forget. When the time came for Rhea to bear her 6th child, her sorrow became unbearable. She could not allow Cronus to take this one too. And so, with a heart both heavy and determined, she sought a way to defy her husband. On a night cloaked in shadows, Rhea fled to the island of Crete. There, hidden among the mountains in a cave upon Mount Ida, she gave birth to a son, a child unlike any other. His name was Zeus. The cries of the newborn echoed softly in the cave, carried away by the gentle hum of the earth. Rhea knew she could not keep him, for Cronus would find him. But she also knew she could not surrender him to death. So she devised a plan. She wrapped a stone in swaddling cloth, shaping it like an infant, and returned to Cronus. Without question, blinded by his own fear, Cronus swallowed the stone, believing it to be his son. Meanwhile, the true child, the last hope of the cosmos, lay hidden in the cave. There he was cared for by nymphs, nourished by the milk of the divine goat Amalthea, and protected by the Curetes, warriors who clashed their bronze shields together to drown out his cries. And so Zeus grew far from his father's reach, sheltered in secret, cradled by fate. His destiny, though still distant, already shimmered like lightning on the horizon. The cave on Mount Ida was no ordinary refuge. It was a sanctuary woven into the fabric of the earth itself, a secret chamber where shadows whispered and time moved slowly. The walls were damp with the breath of stone, glistening with droplets that fell in gentle rhythms, like a heartbeat echoing through the silence. The air carried the fragrance of moss, of wild herbs clinging to cracks in the rock, and of the faint sweetness of Amalthea's milk. Every sound, every flicker of light, seemed magnified within that hidden place. The flames of small torches danced against the stone, casting shadows that swayed like ancient spirits keeping watch. Sometimes the cries of the infant Zeus would rise, sharp and fragile, but they were quickly drowned out by the Curetes, who leapt and clashed their bronze shields in a wild dance. The clash of metal against metal reverberated through the cavern like thunder, masking the voice of the child from the ears of Cronus. Zeus grew in this world of secrecy, cradled by the strength of destiny. Each day the nymphs wrapped him in soft woolen cloth, woven with care, and sang lullabies that told of things not yet seen. They whispered of freedom, of light breaking through shadows, of a world where Cronus would no longer hold dominion. Their songs became the rhythm of Zeus's early life, words he could not yet understand but which imprinted themselves upon his spirit. Amalthea, the divine goat, nourished him with her milk. Her eyes were gentle, her presence steady, as if she too knew that the child she fed was no ordinary infant. In some tales, it is said that from her horns spilled endless abundance, fruits, grains and honey flowing without end, as though even nature itself bent to support the child destined to change all things. Her gift would one day be remembered as the cornucopia, the horn of plenty, a symbol of eternal nourishment. Outside the cave, life continued under the rule of Cronus. The world was fertile, for he was not a careless ruler. But his reign was built upon fear, and his heart was chained to the prophecy spoken by his father Uranus. He walked the earth cloaked in suspicion, never trusting, never resting, his mind circling endlessly around the thought of betrayal. Every shadow seemed to whisper against him, every silence seemed to mock him with the inevitability of fate. Rhea lived in sorrow. Though she walked beside the Titan king, her soul remained with her hidden sun. Each night, when the stars rose above the sky, she gazed toward the distant horizon, her heart aching with longing. She wondered if he was safe, if he was growing strong, if he would ever forgive her for leaving him in secrecy. And yet, deep within she carried hope, a fragile flame that refused to die. For she knew that Zeus was not lost. He was hidden, protected, and waiting for the moment when destiny would summon him forth. The other children of Cronus, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, lived in a darker fate. They lay within their father's belly, imprisoned in silence. Some say they slept in dreams, their spirits bound but unbroken. Others say they wept, unheard, swallowed into a prison from which only time and courage could release them. Though their bodies were consumed, their essence remained, sparks of divine power waiting to be rekindled. And so the years passed. Zeus grew taller, his voice stronger, his eyes bright with the fire of something greater than childhood. The nymphs taught him the secrets of the earth, how the rivers found their paths, how the winds danced with the mountains, how the stars moved in their endless dance above. From Amalthea he learned gentleness. From the Curetes he learned strength. From the whispers of destiny itself, he learned that his life would not be ordinary. The boy would sit at the mouth of the cave, watching the horizon where sky met sea. He would feel the pull of something vast, something calling him beyond the mountains. The world was waiting. The prophecy was waiting. And within him stirred the first flickers of thunder. The cave that sheltered Zeus was not just a hiding place, it was a cradle of destiny. Every stone seemed to hum with energy, every shadow whispered of things to come. It was as though the earth itself knew that within its secret chambers lay the seed of a new order. The nymphs who raised Zeus were tireless in their devotion. Some say there were three, Adrastea, Ida, and Amalthea. Others claim more, each with her own gifts. Adrastea fed him honey, golden and sweet, the nectar of wild bees that hummed in hidden groves. Ida swaddled him in blankets woven of lamb's wool, soft and perfumed with herbs that calmed his infant cries. Amalthea, as always, gave him her milk, strong, nourishing, filled with the strength of the divine. But beyond these comforts they gave him something greater, secrecy and survival. For Cronus searched constantly. His fear drove him to wander the earth and sea, sniffing out whispers of rebellion. He interrogated spirits, demanded signs from oracles, and listened with suspicion to the wind. Yet he never found the boy. The clashing of the Curetes' shields, bronze against bronze, rhythm against silence, drowned out Zeus's cries like thunder covering a whisper. Cronus, for all his vigilance, remained blind. Time in the cave did not flow like time outside. Each day seemed stretched, each night deepened with silence. But Zeus grew quickly. The gods are not like mortals. Their childhood is brief, their strength blooms swiftly. Within a few short years, the infant became a child, the child a youth, the youth a figure already tall and radiant with the spark of divinity. He was curious, restless, hungry to learn. He asked questions of the nymphs, where the rivers came from, why the stars shone, why storms rolled across the skies. They answered as best they could, weaving tales of earth and sky, of love and strife, of beginnings and endings. And all the while, Zeus listened, storing each story within him like seeds waiting for their season to bloom. Often he would sit at the cave's entrance and watch the world unfold. The horizon stretched endlessly, painted in hues of dawn and dusk. The sea shimmered in silver light, restless and vast. The mountains loomed tall, their peaks wrapped in veils of cloud. He felt them all as though they were part of him, their voices echoing within his soul. Sometimes storms would gather, winds howling, waves crashing, lightning splitting the sky. And in those moments something stirred inside him. His heart would race, his veins would hum, and his eyes would flash with light that was not entirely his own. The nymphs whispered that the storm obeyed him, not the other way around. But Zeus, still young, only smiled, not yet knowing the depth of his power. Rhea, far away, carried her grief in silence. Each time Cronus called upon her, she played the part of the obedient queen, hiding her sorrow beneath a mask of composure. But in her heart, her thoughts wandered always to the cave, to the sun she had hidden, to the hope she had risked everything to preserve. When she gazed at Cronus, her soul recoiled. He believed himself secure, believed he had swallowed all threats, believed he had defeated fate. Yet Rhea knew. She knew the prophecy still lived, sleeping in the breaths of her hidden child. Meanwhile, the swallowed children of Cronus, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, existed in a strange twilight within their father's body. Some myths say they floated in a dream, untouched by time, their divine essence keeping them alive. Others tell of their awareness, their anger, their longing to be free. Imagine it, an endless prison without light, without sound, without form. And yet, they endured, their spirits burning faintly like coals hidden beneath ash, waiting for the spark that would set them ablaze again. Zeus grew strong. His arms broadened, his voice deepened, his stride grew firm. He could lift stones larger than men, climb mountains with ease, wrestle wild beasts without fear. Yet his strength was not only of body, it was of mind. The nymphs taught him patience, the Curetes discipline, the earth herself endurance. He learned that true power was not in striking quickly, but in striking at the right time. And within him a quiet resolve began to form. But Cronus's shadow loomed ever near. The Titan king, though blind to Zeus's presence, remained restless. Prophecy gnawed at him like a constant hunger. Each feast tasted of ashes, each triumph felt hollow. He could devour every child, conquer every land, silence every voice, and still the words of Uranus haunted him. As you have overthrown me, so too shall your own children rise against you. And so the stage was set. The world waited. The earth hummed with anticipation. The stars glimmered with silent witness. And in a cave on Mount Ida, a young god grew, hidden, nurtured, and destined to change the fate of the cosmos. This was the beginning. The prophecy had not been silenced. It had only been delayed. And destiny, patient and unyielding, was drawing closer with every breath. The years passed in the quiet sanctuary of Mount Ida. The boy who had once been cradled in the arms of nymphs now stood tall, his body broad and strong, his eyes bright with an unearthly fire. Zeus was no longer a child hidden away. He was a youth on the threshold of godhood. Though he had been sheltered from Cronus's wrath, he was not untouched by destiny. Dreams came to him often, heavy with symbols and voices. He would see shadows of chains, hear cries muffled in darkness, feel the weight of silence pressing against him. Sometimes he dreamed of a voice, deep, commanding, echoing like thunder. It spoke not in words but in certainty, "Your time will come." The nymphs noticed the change in him. He grew restless, pacing at the mouth of the cave, staring for long hours at the horizon where sea and sky met. His hands, once content with play, now sought strength, lifting stones, shaping wood, testing his muscles against wild beasts. Even the Curetes, fierce guardians who had raised him in discipline, began to bow their heads in respect. They saw not just a youth but a leader. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in shades of gold and violet, a figure approached the cave. She moved like the wind, soft yet purposeful, her presence commanding without force. Her eyes gleamed with wisdom that no mortal could fathom, and her voice carried the calm weight of inevitability. This was Métis, the goddess of cunning, the whisperer of wisdom, the one who guided with patience rather than power. Zeus looked upon her and felt both curiosity and recognition. Though he had never seen her before, something within him stirred as though his spirit knew hers. She spoke softly, yet her words cut through the silence like clear water flowing over stone. "Son of Rhea," she said, "the time has come for you to learn who you are." Zeus straightened, his brow furrowing. He had always known there was something hidden in his story, secrets in the eyes of the nymphs, whispers in the shadows of the cave. But now the veil began to lift. Métis told him of Cronus, the titan who devoured his children out of fear. She told him of Rhea's sorrow, of the stone that had been swallowed in his place. She told him of his brothers and sisters, trapped within the belly of the tyrant. And she told him of the prophecy, spoken long ago, that one of Cronus's children would overthrow him and bring a new order to the cosmos. As she spoke, Zeus felt his heart pound like the beat of a war drum. The shadows of his dreams took form, the cries, the chains, the silence. They were not just visions. They were memories of lives swallowed, siblings lost, destinies stolen. Zeus's jaw tightened, his fists clenched. Yet Métis placed a hand upon his shoulder, her touch cool and steady. "Do not let anger rule you," she whispered. "Power without wisdom is destruction. Courage without patience is folly. You must be more than strength, Zeus. You must be cunning. You must be prepared." From that day forward, Métis became his secret teacher. She taught him the ways of strategy, of subtlety, of timing. She showed him that victory was not always in force but in knowledge. Like a fisherman who waits patiently for the right moment to cast his net, Zeus learned that destiny itself could be guided if one was willing to listen. Nights in the cave became lessons. Métis would draw lines in the earth with a branch, shaping maps of battle, of alliances, of paths unseen. She taught Zeus to read the stars, to hear the language of the wind, to feel the shifting of the earth beneath his feet. Every lesson deepened his strength not in muscle but in spirit. The Curetes too saw the change. When Zeus trained with them, his movements grew sharper, more deliberate. He fought not with reckless power but with controlled precision. Each strike was measured, each defense calculated. The boy who had once been hidden now carried himself like one who was preparing to command. Still there were moments of doubt. At night, when the fire burned low, Zeus would stare into the flames and wonder if he was truly meant to rise against Cronus. The Titan was vast, ancient, and filled with fearsome power. Could a single youth, no matter how strong, truly hope to overthrow him? Métis answered these doubts with patience. You are not alone, she said. The world itself waits for change. Your siblings wait in silence, bound but unbroken. The Cyclopes wait in darkness, their forges quiet but ready. The 100-handed ones wait in chains, their fury caged. You are the spark, Zeus, but when you rise, the fire will spread. Her words settled into him like seeds, slowly rooting, slowly growing. And though the path ahead was uncertain, Zeus began to feel within him a power unlike any he had ever known. A power not just of muscle or storm but of destiny. Days passed into weeks and weeks into months. Zeus's training under Métis was relentless but quiet, like the slow carving of a river through stone. She never pushed him into fury or haste. Instead, she guided him toward patience, teaching him to wait for the right moment to strike. She reminded him that Cronus's downfall would not come through reckless violence, but through wisdom as sharp as a blade. At night, when the stars shimmered like silver dust scattered across the heavens, Métis would lead Zeus outside the cave. They would sit upon a ridge, the air cool with mountain winds, and she would point to the constellations. Do you see them? She asked. The stars are not just lights. They are stories written across eternity. They tell us what has been, what is, and sometimes what may come. Zeus watched in silence, his eyes tracing the slow wheel of the cosmos. Each star seemed to whisper, each cluster seemed to hum with meaning. He felt small beneath their vast expanse, and yet, strangely, he felt part of them, as if the rhythm of their dance was mirrored in the beat of his own heart. Your fate is written among them, Métis said. But fate is not a chain. It is a river. You may not stop its flow, but you may learn to guide it. Zeus never forgot those words. By day his strength grew. He wrestled beasts of the mountains, wild bulls, snarling wolves, serpents thick as tree trunks. His hands grew calloused, his arms corded with muscle, his voice carried with authority even when spoken softly. Yet he did not become cruel or careless. The nymphs had taught him gentleness, the Curetes had taught him discipline, and now Métis taught him wisdom. In his heart, though, questions lingered. Who was he beyond the boy hidden in the cave? What did it mean to be the son of Cronus, the one destined to overthrow him? At times Zeus feared the prophecy. At other times he embraced it. But always it loomed before him like the horizon, distant yet inescapable. One evening, when the firelight danced long shadows against the cavern walls, Métis brought with her a small clay vessel. It was simple, unadorned, sealed with wax. Yet even before she spoke, Zeus felt its weight, not of clay but of destiny. What is this? He asked, his voice low. A gift, Métis replied. Or perhaps a weapon. Within this vessel lies a draught, brewed from herbs older than Cronus himself, mixed with the waters of Lethe, stirred by secrets the Titans have long forgotten. She placed the vessel in his hands. If Cronus drinks of this, his body will betray him. The children he has swallowed will rise again, freed from their prison. They will stand beside you, and you will not be alone. Zeus's eyes widened. For the first time, the dream of rebellion felt real. His siblings, the brothers and sisters he had never known, lived still, trapped, yes, but alive. And if freed, they would stand with him, bound not only by blood but by vengeance. Why give this to me now? He asked. Why not wait until I am older, stronger? Métis studied him, her gaze sharp as a blade yet gentle as rain. Because strength is not measured in years, Zeus. It is measured in readiness. And you are ready. Cronus rules through fear, but fear is blind. He believes he has devoured all threats. He believes you are nothing but a stone wrapped in cloth. That blindness is his weakness, and you must be the one to strike. Zeus gripped the vessel tightly, its surface cool against his palm. Within it lay the key to everything: the freedom of his siblings, the downfall of his father, the birth of a new order. And yet, he felt the weight of its responsibility press upon him like a mountain. Métis seemed to sense his thoughts. "Do not fear the burden," she said softly. "Every great act is heavy. But you were not born to hide in shadows. You were born to bring light. And light, Zeus, is never gentle when it first pierces the dark." That night Zeus did not sleep. He sat at the mouth of the cave, the vessel resting in his lap, and watched as the moon rose slow and bright over the horizon. The silver light spilled across the mountains, touching the earth with quiet grace. Zeus thought of his mother, Rhea, her sorrow and her courage. He thought of his swallowed siblings, their silent prison within Cronus. He thought of the prophecy and of Uranus's curse upon his son. For the first time he did not see the prophecy as a burden. He saw it as a path that led not only to vengeance but to freedom, to balance, to the order of a world that waited in silence for change. The days that followed were filled with preparation. Zeus trained harder, his strikes sharper, his movements swift and sure. The Curetes tested him with endless battles, their bronze shields clashing against his blows. The nymphs taught him patience and silence, reminding him that storms must gather before they break. Métis sharpened his mind with riddles and strategy, teaching him to see not just the world as it was, but as it could be. And always the vessel remained at his side, a reminder of the moment that awaited him. One morning, as dawn painted the sky with shades of rose and gold, Zeus rose early and climbed to the highest ridge above the cave. There he stood alone, the wind tearing through his hair, the world stretching vast before him. He lifted his hand to the heavens, and thunder rumbled faintly in answer. It was not yet the full storm, not yet the lightning that would one day split mountains, but it was enough. It was the promise of what was to come. And Zeus smiled. For he knew the time of hiding was drawing to an end. The prophecy was stirring. And soon the world would tremble beneath its truth. The morning came quietly, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Zeus rose before the first rays of the sun touched the mountains of Crete. The nymphs were still asleep, curled gently in their moss-covered beds. The Curetes, exhausted from a night of rhythmic dances and shield clashing to cover his cries, lay resting near the cavern mouth. Only the faint sound of dripping water echoed in the darkness. Zeus did not wake them, for he knew what he must do now was his alone to bear. Wrapped in a simple cloak, his hair tied back with a strip of leather, Zeus descended from the mountain. Each step felt heavy, not with fear but with destiny. The clay vessel, sealed and still, rested within a leather pouch at his side. Every time it brushed against his thigh, he felt its silent power, a quiet reminder of what lay ahead. The path down the mountain was long. He moved past ancient olive trees whose twisted branches reached like gnarled fingers into the sky. He crossed streams so clear they mirrored the heavens, the water chilling his skin as he knelt to drink. Birds scattered in bursts of color as he passed, and the wind whispered through the tall grass, carrying secrets only the gods could hear. With each mile, the boy hidden in the cave felt further away. Zeus was no longer just the infant concealed by Rhea's cunning, nor the child fed by Amalthea's milk. He was the bearer of prophecy, the one chosen to shift the balance of the cosmos. As he journeyed, he recalled Metis's teachings. He remembered her warnings. Do not meet Cronus with rage alone, Zeus. Rage blinds. Let him see not a warrior, but a servant. Let him drink from your hand, never suspecting the storm you carry within. Her words echoed as he descended the hills, as he crossed the plains, as he approached the looming shadow of Cronus's palace. The palace of the Titan king was vast, carved into the earth itself. Its walls were black stone, streaked with veins of gold that glowed faintly like fireflies trapped in the rock. High pillars rose like cliffs, supporting a ceiling that seemed to scrape the very sky. The gates, forged of bronze, were so immense that mortals could have lived entire lives in their shadow. Zeus paused at the threshold. The air here was heavy, thick with the weight of power. Every stone whispered of fear, every echo trembled with the cries of those who had been devoured. Yet he did not falter. He stepped forward, cloaked not as a god but as a humble cupbearer. Inside, the halls were lit with fire that never died. Flames roared from massive braziers, filling the air with heat and smoke. The scent of spiced wine clung to the walls, mingled with the metallic tang of bronze and blood. Shadows moved across the stone, cast long by the flickering light. At the far end sat Cronus, vast and terrible, upon a throne of dark granite. His hair was like storms, wild and unkempt. His eyes burned with suspicion, sharp as blades, always searching for threats that never came, or so he believed. Before him stretched a feast of fruits, meats, and golden cups overflowing with wine. Around him stood lesser titans, silent in their watch. Zeus bowed low, his face hidden beneath his hood. "My lord," he said softly, his voice steady but humble, "I bring wine for your table." Cronus did not know him. To the Titan king this was no god, no son. This was but a servant, a shadow among shadows. "Bring it forward," Cronus commanded, his voice deep as thunder rolling across mountains. Zeus stepped closer, the vessel concealed in his hands. The heat of the hall pressed against his skin. The eyes of the Titans weighed heavily upon him. Yet he walked calmly, each step measured, each breath steady. He knelt before the throne. From the clay vessel, he poured the golden draught into a cup. The liquid glistened in the firelight, thick and strange, its scent sweet yet heavy. Cronus's hand, vast as stone, reached for the cup. Zeus held his breath as the Titan raised it to his lips. The first sip passed without notice. The second made Cronus pause. The third brought the first tremor of unease. And then the storm broke. A great roar shook the hall. Cronus's eyes widened, his hand clutching his stomach as if torn by invisible claws. His body heaved, convulsing, his breath ragged. The Titans around him stumbled back in fear. Zeus did not move. With another roar, Cronus fell to his knees. From his mouth erupted light, blinding, brilliant, unbearable. And within that light, figures began to take shape. First came Hestia, trembling but alive, her eyes wide with wonder. Then Demeter, radiant with a strength that had never dimmed. Hera followed, her presence already majestic, her gaze fierce with vengeance. Next came Hades, his shadowed eyes filled with fire. And finally Poseidon, rising like a wave unleashed, his voice deep as the sea itself. 5 gods stood reborn. 5 children returned from the darkness of their father's belly. Their forms shimmered with divine light, their breaths heavy with the weight of their imprisonment. For a long moment the hall was silent. The Titans stared in awe, unable to comprehend what had unfolded. Cronus, gasping, staggered back, his power shaken, his pride shattered. And then, slowly, each sibling turned toward Zeus, the brother they had never known, the one who had freed them. Zeus looked at them, and in their eyes he saw not just gratitude but unity. No longer were they swallowed flames. They were fire rekindled. They were the storm that would rise together. In that moment, the 6 siblings swore their silent oath. They would not bow to Cronus again. They would rise as one. They would become the Olympians. And as the flames of the braziers flickered higher, the shadows of war stretched long across the walls. For the age of the Titans was ending, and the age of the gods was about to begin. The hall still shook from the cries of Cronus. The great Titan, once thought invincible, had fallen to his knees, trembling under the weight of his convulsions. The echoes of his roars rolled down the black corridors, out through the gates of bronze and into the world beyond. Yet in that chaos, a new silence grew. It was the silence of 6 siblings standing together. Zeus, tall and steady, still cloaked in the humility of a servant but glowing now with a quiet, undeniable fire. Beside him stood Hestia, her hands trembling, yet her heart burning with the warmth of a hearth that could never be extinguished. Demeter, tall and graceful, her eyes alight with the promise of fertile lands yet to come. Hera, fierce and unyielding, her gaze sharp as a blade, her spirit carrying the dignity of a queen not yet crowned. Hades, cloaked in shadow, his presence heavy and solemn, a depth that none dared to touch. And Poseidon, broad-shouldered and unshaken, the echo of crashing waves within his chest. They did not speak at first. The air was too thick with meaning, too heavy with revelation. But then Hera stepped forward, her voice calm and unwavering. "So it is true," she whispered, her gaze turning to Zeus. "You are the one they hid. The one Rhea saved. The one destiny promised." Zeus met her eyes and bowed his head slightly. "I am your brother," he said, "and I am no more than that. But together we are more than children of Cronus. We are the storm that will end his reign." The Titans gathered at the edges of the hall shifted uneasily. Some whispered, others turned their eyes away, unwilling to defy Cronus yet fearful of the power that had just been reborn before them. The firelight danced wildly across their faces, as if the very flames had chosen sides. Hestia, still pale from her release, spoke softly. "For too long we were trapped in the belly of night. For too long we were silenced. Let us never forget what was taken from us." Demeter placed a hand upon her sister's shoulder. "And let us promise that no such darkness will bind us again." Hades stepped closer, his eyes fixed not on his siblings but on the trembling form of their father. "There is no turning back now," he said in a low voice. "He will not forgive this. He will strike at us with everything he holds. We must be ready." Poseidon raised his chin, his deep voice steady as the sea. "Then let us swear it. Here in the shadow of our father's fall. Let us swear to stand as one, to break his chains, to shatter his crown, to claim what is ours by blood and by right." Zeus, standing at the center, unwrapped the cloak that had hidden him. For the first time, his siblings saw him fully revealed. His shoulders broad, his eyes bright as lightning, his presence commanding yet calm. The shadows seemed to retreat from him, the air itself thick with anticipation. "Then hear me, brothers and sisters," he said, his voice deep but gentle, each word carrying like thunder that rolls across distant mountains. "By the breath of Gaia who bore us, by the sky of Uranus who watches still, by the blood we share and the pain we endured, I swear, I will not rest until the tyranny of Cronus ends. I will not falter until the chains of fear are broken. And I will not stand alone, for I am bound to you and you to me. He extended his hand open waiting. Hestia placed hers upon it, warm as a flame in the dark. Demeter followed, her hand steady as the fertile earth. Hera pressed hers firmly, her strength as sharp as her pride. Hades, solemn and silent, laid his hand with the weight of shadow and inevitability. And finally Poseidon, his grip strong and sure, the pulse of the sea in his veins. 6 hands one upon another. 6 gods, born of fear but bound by purpose. In that moment the oath was sealed. Not with blood but with destiny. Not with words but with the very breath of the cosmos. Cronus, gasping, rose shakily to his feet. His eyes burned with hatred, his voice cracked with rage. You dare defy me? You dare raise yourselves against your father? Against the king of the Titans? The siblings did not answer. They did not need to. Their silence was heavier than any words, and Cronus felt it press against him like the weight of a world he could no longer control. He stumbled back toward his throne, his hands shaking, his pride broken. Yet even in his weakness he was still Cronus. Still the Titan who had once overthrown Uranus, who had ruled the cosmos with fear and fire. You are but children, he spat, his voice echoing across the hall. Children playing at gods. I will crush you as I crushed him. I will swallow you again, and this time no trick, no prophecy, no deception will save you. Zeus stepped forward, lightning flickering faintly in his eyes though no thunderbolt yet rested in his hand. No, he said quietly but firmly. You will not swallow us again. The age of Titans ends tonight. The hall erupted into chaos. Some Titans fled in fear, their loyalty broken. Others rallied to Cronus, their roars shaking the stone. But the 6 siblings stood unwavering, their hands still joined, their eyes set not on the terror of the moment but on the promise of the future. The firelight blazed higher, casting their shadows long upon the walls. 6 figures towering, vast, immortal. For in the eyes of fate, they were no longer victims. They were gods. And the war of the ages was about to begin. That night, hidden in the corners of the cosmos, the prophecy whispered again. The words that had haunted Cronus, the words he had tried to silence with fear and hunger, returned like echoes in the wind. From your own blood shall rise the one who cast you down. From the child you sought to devour shall come the storm you cannot escape. And from the womb of Rhea shall be born the new order of the cosmos. Cronus had tried to resist it. He had tried to bury it in the bellies of the earth. But prophecy does not break. It waits. It breathes. And now it had awakened. Far beyond the black halls, the stars themselves seemed to flicker brighter. The moon rose high, silver and calm as if watching with quiet approval. The earth trembled faintly, not with fear but with anticipation. And the seas whispered against the shores, the waves rising and falling in rhythm with a destiny too vast to deny. The oath of the Olympians had been spoken. The bond had been sealed. And though war had not yet begun, the world itself knew that nothing would ever be the same. The age of Cronus had ended. The age of Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, Hera, Demeter, and Hestia was dawning. And high upon Mount Ida, where Zeus had once been hidden, the wind carried a single, quiet truth. The storm is coming. The oath had been sworn. 6 siblings, once swallowed in silence, now stood hand in hand as the first true Olympians. Their promise echoed across the cosmos like thunder rolling over mountains, and though the world lay quiet, destiny stirred awake. Far below, the roots of the earth trembled. High above, the stars flickered with uneasy fire. And across the wide halls of the Titans, whispers spread like wildfire. Cronus, though weakened by the potion of Métis, did not fall easily. He staggered back to his throne, his body aching, his pride broken, but his spirit still burning. For Cronus was no mere tyrant. He was the scythe-bearer, the one who had torn his father Uranus from the sky. He was the Titan of time, whose name alone sent fear into the hearts of gods and men alike. And though he had been deceived, though his children now stood before him, he would not bow. Not yet. The 6 siblings retreated to the safety of the wild mountains, far from the golden throne of Cronus. On the slopes of Mount Othrys, where the Titans had built their palaces of stone and gold, they dared not linger. Instead, they climbed the rugged cliffs of Mount Olympus, a mountain not yet crowned with immortality, not yet home to palaces, but already steeped in mystery, its peaks brushing the heavens. There, in the shadow of the storm, they gathered. Zeus, still young yet radiant with resolve, stood at the center. His siblings encircled him, their faces lit by the glow of moonlight and the quiet fire of determination. "The time has come," Zeus said, his voice calm but commanding. "Cronus will not forgive us. He will not relent. He will summon the Titans, and they will march against us with fury unmatched. We must be ready. We must be more than 6 voices crying against the storm. We must be a storm ourselves." Poseidon nodded, his eyes glinting like the depths of the sea. "Cronus may command the sky for now, but the seas answer to no one. When the waves rise, they do not ask permission. I will strike with the force of the ocean itself." Hades, quiet and brooding, folded his arms. "And what of the underworld? The shadows stir at my call, but alone they cannot overcome the strength of Titans. We will need more than the power of earth, sky, and sea. We will need allies." Demeter's voice was gentle but resolute. "The earth itself longs to be free from tyranny. The fields lie fallow under Cronus, the harvest strangled by his greed. When the time comes, the soil will answer to us." Hestia, calm and warm, added softly, "And so will the hearts of mortals, though they know us not yet. The smallest flame, the humblest fire, will burn brighter when fear is gone." Finally Hera stepped forward, her eyes sharp as steel. "You speak of allies," she said, looking to her brothers. "But remember, unity begins here. We must not falter, not once. If one of us falls, the others must stand. If one doubts, the others must remind them. Cronus has ruled by fear. Let us rule by loyalty." Zeus's heart swelled at her words. For though Hera had spoken with pride, her voice carried truth. They were no longer children. They were the seeds of a new world, and only together could they survive. Far across the plains, in the halls of Mount Othrys, Cronus gathered his own. The great Titans came at his call, their steps shaking the mountains, their voices like the roar of thunder. There was Hyperion, the Lord of Light, whose eyes blazed like the sun. There was Zeus, the Titan of intellect, sharp and calculating. Crius, master of constellations, whose arms could stretch across the heavens. And Iapetus, father of Prometheus and Epimetheus, his fury unmatched in battle. Beside them came the daughters of Gaia and Uranus, Thea radiant as dawn, Rhea silent and sorrowful, and Mnemosyne, keeper of memory, whose very presence reminded them of every victory and every loss. and at the center stood Cronus, his scythe gleaming, his eyes burning with hatred. "They dare rise against me," he thundered. "My own children, poisoned by prophecy, deceived by Rhea. They think themselves gods, but they are nothing but dust waiting to be swept aside. Shall we let them steal what is ours? Shall we bow to children? No!" The Titans roared, their voices shaking the heavens. "Then hear me," Cronus said, lifting the blade of Uranus high. "Tonight begins a war that will echo across eternity. Tonight we remind the cosmos why we are Titans. Tonight we strike, and none shall survive our wrath." Back on Olympus, as the siblings looked down into the valley below, they could already feel the tremors of Titan feet. The war had not yet begun, but its shadow stretched long across the earth. Zeus raised his hand, and the clouds above stirred faintly, though no storm broke yet. "Then let it begin," he whispered. "For we are no longer children. We are Olympians." And so, beneath a starless sky, the first sparks of the Titanomachy were lit. The night upon Olympus was restless. The siblings sat together upon the bare stone, their faces lit only by the faint glow of the stars. Each of them knew the truth. Alone they could not hope to match the Titans. Their father's brothers and sisters were ancient, vast as mountains, strong as storms, and their dominion over the cosmos had lasted for ages untold. But prophecy did not lie. And prophecy whispered of help hidden deep below the earth. It was Hestia who spoke first, her voice soft as a fire's crackle. "There is a power still bound, a power Cronus feared more than even us. Do you not feel it? Beneath the earth, something stirs." Zeus nodded. "For years I dreamt of voices calling to me. They came not from the sky nor from the seas, but from the depths, voices of thunder, voices of stone. They cried out for freedom." Hades's eyes darkened, his voice low. "In the underworld I have seen their shadows. Creatures vast and chained, their strength bound in iron forged by fear itself. They are not Titans nor are they like us. They are older. They are the children of Gaia and Uranus, cast down by our father and imprisoned so that no prophecy might ever free them." Poseidon leaned forward, his eyes glimmering like the sea under moonlight. "Then let us free them. If Cronus feared them, then surely they will fight against him. Tell us, brother, who are these beings?" Zeus's face grew solemn, his voice carrying the weight of eternity. "They are the Cyclopes, the one-eyed forgers, masters of fire and metal, creators of weapons no god nor Titan could withstand. And they are the Centimanes, the 100-handed ones, each with 50 heads, whose roars shake the roots of the world." The siblings fell silent. Even the breeze seemed to hold its breath. Hera's brow furrowed. "Beings of such power, if they were to turn against us, would we not face a doom even greater than Cronus?" Zeus met her gaze calmly. "We have no choice. The Titans march with legions of stone and flame. We are 6. Without allies we are nothing. But if we free the Cyclopes, if we release the Centimanes, then the scales of war may yet tilt in our favor." Hades's lips curved in the faintest shadow of a smile. "Then let the chains of Tartarus be broken. Let us do what Cronus never dared." And so it was decided. Zeus, youngest of the gods but already their leader, would descend into the abyss. Hades would guide him, for no one knew the darkness better. Poseidon would stand beside them, his trident still unshaped, his will unbroken. The sisters would remain upon Olympus, weaving prayers and guarding the flame of hope. The journey began at dawn, though no sun broke the sky. For as they descended into the caverns of the underworld, the light of day vanished, swallowed by the weight of earth and shadow. The air grew heavy, damp with the scent of stone and iron. Their footsteps echoed endlessly, as though the tunnels themselves were alive, listening, remembering. Down they went, past rivers that boiled with fire, past caves where shadows whispered, past gates that creaked though no hand touched them. Hades walked ahead, his cloak trailing like a piece of night itself. His voice, when it came, was quiet but steady. Here lies the place Cronus feared most. Here the children of Gaia languish, chained in darkness. And here we will find either our doom or our salvation. At last they reached the gates of Tartarus. It was no simple door of bronze nor wood, but a wall of living stone, black as midnight, taller than mountains, sealed with chains that glowed with the fire of the stars. Before it roared a great chasm, bottomless and wide, its depths filled with flames that writhed like serpents. Zeus stood upon the brink, his eyes alight with determination. "How do we cross?" he asked. Hades raised a hand, and shadows gathered at his feet. "This chasm is not meant to be crossed. It is meant to be feared." But shadows obey no boundary. From the darkness rose a bridge, not of stone nor wood, but of night itself, woven from silence and dread. It stretched across the abyss, trembling faintly, yet strong enough to bear them. Poseidon's jaw tightened, but he did not falter. "Then let us walk it," he said, and together they crossed, the flames below writhing hungrily as though longing to devour them. On the far side they found the chains. They were thicker than tree trunks, forged from a metal no god had ever seen, each link etched with curses older than the stars. Behind them shadows shifted, vast and terrible. A single voice boomed from within, deep and trembling, shaking the ground beneath their feet. "Who comes to the prison of the Cyclopes?" Zeus stepped forward. "I am Zeus, son of Cronus, born of Rhea, hidden in secret and saved by prophecy. I come to break your chains." For a moment there was silence. Then a sound like thunderous laughter shook the cavern. "You are but a boy," the voice said. "Your father feared us. He bound us here in chains of night. What makes you think you can do what he never dared?" Zeus lifted his hand and lightning flickered between his fingers. "I am not Cronus. I am his end." The chains shuddered as the beings within stirred. Another voice rang out, sharper, louder, like a hammer striking an anvil. "Free us, and we shall forge for you weapons that no titan can withstand. Free us, and we shall give you the storm, the sea, and the shadow itself." And another voice, deeper still, filled the cavern. "Free us, and we shall fight at your side until the earth itself cracks beneath our fury." Poseidon glanced at his brother. "The choice is yours, Zeus. Will you risk unleashing powers even Cronus could not control?" Zeus did not hesitate. "Yes," he said. "For without you we are lost. With you we are destiny." He raised his hand and lightning surged, striking the chains. The curses flared, the links glowed, and with a deafening roar they shattered. The gates trembled, the stone cracked, and from within emerged the Cyclopes. Their eyes burned like suns, their arms strong as mountains, their voices like rolling thunder. Behind them came the Centimanes, towering giants with 100 arms and 50 heads, their roars shaking the earth, their fury shaking the stars. For the first time in ages they were free. The Cyclopes fell to their knees, their one eyes glowing with gratitude. "You have freed us," they said, "and for that we gift you our craft. To you, Zeus, we give the thunderbolt, weapon of sky and storm, fire and fury. Wield it and the heavens will obey. They turned to Poseidon. To you we give the trident, a weapon of seas and rivers, storms and earthquakes. Wield it and the oceans will bow. And to Hades they came last. To you we give the helm of darkness, a crown of shadow unseen by all. Wield it and even gods will not find you. The brothers accepted their gifts, the weight of destiny now heavy in their hands. The Centimanes roared, their 100 arms rising. Lead us, Zeus. Let us, sons of Cronus. For tonight the chains of Tartarus are broken. Tonight the Titans shall tremble. Tonight begins the war that will shake the cosmos. And with that the abyss itself seemed to quake. The flames of Tartarus flared high, the shadows screamed, and the earth trembled as though awakening. The Olympians had found their allies. And the storm of war was about to break. The gifts of the Cyclopes burned with power. The thunderbolt, heavy in Zeus's hand, glowed faintly, a streak of lightning waiting to be unleashed. The trident in Poseidon's grasp shimmered with the endless depths of the sea, its 3 prongs humming like waves crashing against cliffs. And the helm of darkness, resting in Hades's palm, was as silent as shadow itself, a crown not of gold but of fear, invisibility, and inevitability. With their weapons and their newfound allies, the Cyclopes and the Centimanes, the siblings returned to Olympus. There they stood, no longer merely the children of Cronus, but leaders of an army unlike any the cosmos had ever seen. And still Cronus waited. The war began not with silence but with thunder. The Titans marched from Mount Othrys, their steps shaking the earth. They came with boulders vast as mountains, with fire pulled from the veins of the world, with voices so loud they split the air. Cronus led them, his scythe gleaming, his eyes full of rage. From Olympus the young gods descended. Zeus raised his thunderbolt, and the sky split open. Lightning flashed, thunder roared, and the first battle of the Titanomachy began. Imagine the battlefield. The sky blackened with smoke and storm. The seas churned, waves rising as tall as mountains. The earth cracked, flames bursting from its core. Every clash was not just a fight between beings, but a collision of forces. Sky against stone, sea against fire, shadow against light. The Centimanes hurled boulders the size of cities, their 100 arms moving in unison, their roars shaking the stars. The Cyclopes unleashed forges of flame, hurling molten fire across the battlefield, their one eyes blazing. Against them came the Titans. Hyperion, shining with the fire of the sun, scorched the earth with every step. Crius summoned constellations as weapons, his arms stretching across the night sky. Iapetus struck with fury unmatched, his blows falling like meteors. And Cronus himself carved through the storm, his scythe slicing lightning, his roar drowning thunder. The first year passed in endless battle. Neither side claimed victory. Each dawn brought new thunder, each dusk carried new screams. The sky became a canvas of fire, the earth a graveyard of stone. The second year saw the seas rise in fury. Poseidon struck his trident against the earth, and mountains crumbled into waves. Islands sank, swallowed whole by the ocean's wrath. But Oceanus, the titan of the vast river encircling the world, rose against him, and their clash churned the waters until no sailor could dream of calm seas. The third year brought shadows. Hades, wearing the helm of darkness, vanished from sight. Unseen he crept among the Titans sowing terror. Blades struck nothing but air, and voices cried out in confusion as foes were struck by a hand they could not see. But Zeus, Titan of intellect, whispered warnings, his cunning mind unraveling Hades's hidden paths. The fourth year blurred into the fifth, and the war became not a series of battles but a state of existence. The land itself groaned beneath the weight of so much fury. Trees withered, mountains split, rivers turned black with ash. The very air seemed heavy with exhaustion, as though the world itself longed for rest. Yet neither side would yield. By the sixth year, alliances faltered. Some titans, weary of Cronus's rage, whispered doubt. Prometheus, son of Iapetus, watched silently from the shadows, pity stirring in his heart for the younger gods. His brother Epimetheus urged loyalty to the Titans, but Prometheus knew the tide of fate was shifting. In secret, he carried fire to Zeus, a flame to strengthen the resolve of the Olympians. The seventh year brought storms unending. Zeus hurled thunderbolt after thunderbolt, each one splitting mountains, each one lighting the battlefield in blinding fire. The Titans hurled boulders in answer, great stones crashing into valleys, carving wounds in the earth. The war was not just fought, it reshaped the very face of the world. By the eighth year, exhaustion grew heavy. The Olympians, though immortal, felt the weight of endless struggle. Their voices grew hoarse, their eyes heavy. Even gods, it seemed, could know weariness. But the Centimanes did not tire. With 100 arms, they hurled destruction unending. With 50 heads, they roared in defiance. Their fury was eternal, their strength bottomless. The Titans began to fear them. Even Cronus, proud and wrathful, cast wary glances when the 100-handed one struck. The ninth year carried whispers of an end. The stars themselves flickered strangely, constellations shifting as though watching the war. The moon glowed pale, weary of the endless bloodshed. Even the winds seemed hesitant, unsure which side to carry. Yet still no victor rose. And so came the 10th year. A decade of battle, a decade of storm and shadow. The world, once new and vibrant, now bore scars deeper than rivers, higher than mountains. And at last both sides knew, this could not continue. Zeus gathered his siblings. We cannot fight as we have. The war has dragged too long. We must end it, now. Poseidon lifted his trident. The seas are ready. Hades lowered his helm over his head. The shadows wait. The sisters, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, stood firm. The earth itself will answer, Demeter vowed. And the Cyclopes and Centimanes roared as one. Then lead us to the final battle. From Mount Olympus to Mount Othrys the armies marched. The air grew still, the earth silent, as though all creation held its breath. Above, the stars shone cold and clear, awaiting the clash to come. And at the center of it all stood Zeus, thunderbolt in hand, his eyes alight with storm. Before him loomed Cronus, his scythe gleaming, his pride unbroken. The final clash of the Titanomachy had arrived. The world held its breath. For 10 years the war had raged, years of thunder and stone, of fire and sea, of shadow and fear. The scars of battle lay etched into every mountain, every river, every valley. But now both armies gathered for the last time. It would not be another clash in an endless war. It would be the end. Upon the heights of Mount Othrys, Cronus stood tall, his scythe gleaming with a deadly light. Around him gathered the loyal Titans, Hyperion blazing like the sun, Crius stretching constellations into weapons of fire, Iapetus pounding his fists like falling meteors. Their roars shook the mountains, their fury darkened the sky. Across the plains, upon the slopes of Olympus, the young gods stood ready. Zeus, his thunderbolt glowing, lightning dancing at his fingertips. Poseidon, his trident gleaming with the light of endless seas. Hades, his helm cloaking him in shadow, unseen yet ever present. Beside them stood Hera, proud and fierce, Demeter, her hands rich with the promise of earth, Hestia, her calm presence like a flame that never dies. And behind them the Centimanes loomed, their 100 arms hurling stones and mountains, their roars rolling like thunder. The Cyclopes stood with them, their forges blazing, their eyes burning with fire. It was no longer a battle of equals. It was a storm. Cronus raised his scythe, his voice booming across the heavens. You dare defy me? You, my children, my blood? I who carved my throne from the sky itself? I who swallowed the stars? You think to overthrow me? His words rolled like thunder, but Zeus did not flinch. Raising his thunderbolt, he answered, his voice calm but unyielding. Your time is over, Father. You ruled with fear. You devoured your children. You sought to chain the world. But prophecy cannot be silenced. Tonight your reign ends. The armies clashed. From the heavens lightning struck, splitting mountains. From the seas waves rose, swallowing Titans whole. The earth cracked, flames bursting from its heart. The Centimanes hurled mountains, their 100 arms pounding the battlefield with fury unmatched. The Cyclopes rained fire, their forges spitting molten flame. The Titans answered with fury. Hyperion blazed, casting fire that blinded armies. Crius stretched stars into spears, hurling them like comets. Iapetus struck down gods with fists like falling worlds. And at the center, Cronus moved like a storm, his scythe slicing through lightning, his voice drowning out thunder. Zeus hurled thunderbolt after thunderbolt, his body shaking with power. Each strike lit the battlefield, each roar cracked the heavens. Poseidon drove his trident into the earth, summoning waves that swept away legions, earthquakes that split the ground. Hades vanished into shadow, unseen, his blade striking from the dark, his enemies falling in confusion and terror. The sisters fought with quiet strength, Demeter turning barren ground into snares, roots rising to bind the Titan's feet. Hera striking with the fury of justice, her voice a rallying cry. Hestia keeping the flame alive, steady, unyielding, her warmth carrying through the storm. 4 days the battle raged. The sky burned with lightning. The seas boiled with fury. The earth trembled as though it would split apart. And then came the moment. Cronus struck. His scythe cut through the air, carving a path straight for Zeus. The youngest god stumbled, the blade flashing before his eyes. But before it could strike, Hades appeared, unseen until the last breath, his helm cloaking him in darkness. He seized Cronus's arm, wrenching it aside. Poseidon surged forward, his trident piercing the ground, waves rising to trap the Titan's feet. And Zeus, gathering every ounce of his strength, raised the thunderbolt high. By the sky, by the earth, by the sea, by the blood you sought to swallow, your time is done. He hurled the bolt. It struck Cronus square in the chest. The sky exploded with light. The earth shook with thunder. Cronus roared, his body writhing, his scythe falling from his hand. The Titans faltered. Their cries filled the air, but the storm was unstoppable. The Centimanes hurled them down, their 100 arms binding them in chains. The Cyclopes forged shackles of fire and iron, unbreakable, eternal. One by one the Titans fell. Cronus, broken, bound, was dragged to the edge of the world. There the gates of Tartarus opened, black and endless, the abyss roaring like a beast. The Centimanes cast him down, his cries echoing into the void. One by one his brothers and sisters followed, Hyperion, Crius, Iapetus, and all who had stood against the gods. Chains bound them, shadows swallowed them, and Tartarus closed. The war was over. Silence fell. For the first time in 10 years no thunder rolled, no sea roared, no earth shook. The world exhaled, weary but alive. The Olympians stood together, their weapons gleaming, their bodies scarred but unbroken. The prophecy had been fulfilled. The Titans had fallen. A new age had dawned. Zeus raised his thunderbolt, his voice carrying across the silent battlefield. From this day forth we are the guardians of the world. Not with fear, not with hunger, not with chains, but with order, with balance, with power tempered by duty. The age of the Titans is ended. The age of the Olympians begins. The Cyclopes bowed, their forges silent but ready. The Centimanes roared in triumph, their voices echoing across the mountains. And the siblings, united, raised their hands together. Sky, sea, and underworld, divided yet bound. The world had been remade. Far above, the stars shone brighter than ever. The moon cast silver light across the scarred earth. And in the quiet, the whispers of destiny faded. For prophecy had been fulfilled. The Titans had fallen. And Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, together with their sisters, had claimed the throne of eternity. The war for the cosmos was done. The battlefield lay silent. For 10 long years the clash of gods and titans had roared without pause, storms tearing mountains apart, oceans devouring shores, fire raining from the skies. Now silence. A silence that was not emptiness but relief. The world breathed again as if the earth itself exhaled after holding its lungs full of ash for a decade. The rivers, once turned to torrents of blood and mud, now trickled softly over stone. Mountains still bore scars, jagged edges where thunderbolts had struck or where colossal hands had hurled boulders. The seas, still restless from Poseidon's fury, shimmered under the pale light of dawn, reflecting colors both strange and beautiful, silver and crimson, blue and molten gold. The gods stood among the ruins. Zeus, his face grave, held the thunderbolt not in triumph but in contemplation. Its glow flickered gently, no longer the blazing weapon that had struck Cronus down, but a quiet reminder of power and of destiny fulfilled. Beside him stood Poseidon, trident in hand. Drops of seawater clung to its prongs, shimmering as though carrying fragments of the ocean itself. His eyes, deep as the waves, studied the horizon. No longer did he see only war. He saw a world waiting, its tides restless, its depths calling. And Hades, silent Hades, his helm tucked beneath his arm, his cloak of shadows wrapped about him. He had fought unseen, striking terror into the hearts of titans, and his silence now was heavier than thunder. His eyes, dark, thoughtful, patient, wandered not toward the heavens nor toward the seas but downward, always downward, to the places hidden beneath where light rarely touched. Their sisters gathered too. Hera, tall and proud, her presence commanding even among her brothers. Demeter, her hands brushing the soil, feeling life stirring again beneath the surface. Hestia, gentle and steady, her warmth like a small flame that endures even after the storm. The war was over. But another decision lay before them. One that could not be fought with thunderbolts or scythes, but only with fate and trust. The siblings gathered at the foot of Mount Olympus. The mountain, though scarred, still stood proud, its peaks veiled in mist, its slopes washed clean by rains that seemed eager to erase the memory of blood. A great fire was kindled at its base, not a fire of destruction but of peace. Hestia herself lit it, her hands steady, her gaze calm. The flames rose, warm and golden, their light reflecting in the eyes of each god. Around the fire they sat in a circle, not as warriors but as family. Zeus spoke first. His voice, though firm, carried no arrogance. The Titans are defeated. Cronus is bound in Tartarus. The age of his reign has ended. But the world remains vast. Too vast for one god to rule alone. His words hung in the air. None challenged them. They all knew the truth of it. Poseidon leaned forward, resting his trident upon the earth. The seas are endless. I have felt their call in battle. Their storms answered me, their waves rose at my command. The waters are my domain whether I claim them or not. But what of the sky? What of the earth? What of the realms beneath? Who among us shall hold them? Hades did not move at first. He let the question linger. Shadows flickered around him, not from malice, but from the nature of his presence. At last he spoke. His voice was low, steady, almost somber. The underworld is vast, older than the Titans, older than even chaos itself. I felt it stirring when Cronus fell. A realm not of glory but of necessity. Someone must guard it. Someone must keep order among the countless souls. I do not seek it for honor, but I know it calls to me. The fire crackled softly. Hera lifted her gaze, her voice sharp yet measured. Then who shall guard the heavens? Who shall rule above all, where storms gather, where stars burn, where the very order of fate is written in the constellations? Zeus looked into the flames. For a long time he said nothing. Then, slowly he raised the thunderbolt. Its light shone not with violence but with calm certainty. The sky has always been mine to command. It was lightning that struck Cronus. It was storm that turned the tide. But it was not mine alone. It was given by the Cyclopes, entrusted by the will of destiny. If fate speaks, then I must answer. I will guard the heavens. The circle was quiet. The fire burned steady, its warmth binding them together. Demeter spoke next, her voice softer but resolute. The earth itself is not claimed, yet it is shared. My hands will guide the fields, Hera will guard the hearths of marriage, Hestia the sacred flame. Let the land belong to us all, though it will be watched over by the sky, touched by the seas and rooted in the depths. There were no shouts, no arguments. For the first time since their birth, the siblings found harmony. And yet, one truth remained. They could not simply divide the world by words. Fate had guided them before. Fate would guide them again. At dawn they climbed higher to the summit of Olympus. The air grew thin, the wind sharp, but the view stretched endlessly. Below, the valleys unfurled like a tapestry. Rivers glittered, mountains rose, seas stretched beyond the horizon. Above, the sky burned with colors of dawn, violet, gold, crimson. At the summit stood a vessel, carved from stone older than the Titans, older than Gaia's first breath. Within it lay 3 lots, hidden stones, each marked with the sign of a realm. One bore the symbol of the sky, one of the sea, one of the shadowed underworld. The brothers stood before it. The sisters watched, silent, solemn, their eyes filled with both pride and worry. Zeus placed his hand into the vessel. The stone he drew bore the mark of the sky. Lightning danced briefly around him, as though the world itself acknowledged what had always been. Poseidon reached next. His hand closed around the second stone, and when he lifted it, the symbol of the sea shimmered upon it. The distant sound of waves echoed, though no ocean was near. Hades stepped forward last. He did not hesitate. His fingers touched the final stone, cool and heavy. The symbol of shadow, of depths, of the underworld glowed faintly. For a moment the air chilled and even the wind grew silent. It was done. Fate had spoken. The division of the cosmos was sealed. Zeus, king of the sky, ruler of storms, keeper of order. Poseidon, lord of the seas, master of waves, guardian of sailors. Hades, king of the underworld, keeper of souls, judge of the silent realms. The sisters took their places beside them, Hera as queen and guardian of marriage, Demeter as nurturer of harvest and life, Hestia as keeper of the sacred flame. The war had forged them. The lots had bound them. And now the world had 3 thrones, not one. The lots had been cast. The fates had spoken. The 3 brothers now stood as kings of their realms, Zeus above, Poseidon across the seas, Hades below. But while the stones had given shape to destiny, the true weight of their crowns had only just begun to settle upon their shoulders. The summit of Olympus glowed beneath the rising sun. The mist parted and golden light fell upon the gods, painting them in hues of crimson and amber. It was as if the heavens themselves acknowledged the new order. Birds, long silenced by the thunder of war, returned to the skies. Rivers, once swollen with destruction, sang their old melodies again. Even the earth, scarred though it was, seemed to hum with quiet renewal. Zeus inhaled the air deeply. It was thin here, yet pure. The thunderbolt rested in his hand, warm, pulsing faintly, alive. It was more than a weapon. It was a covenant. It had been forged for him, entrusted to him, and now it bound him to the role he could not refuse, the guardian of order. Around him, the Olympians looked to him instinctively. Not because he demanded it, but because his presence filled the space. His height, his broad shoulders, the way the very air bent around him, whispering with static. He was the center, the axis upon which the wheel of destiny turned. Poseidon, though strong and proud, did not resent him. The trident in his hand shimmered with a quiet strength. He knew the seas would never tire, never rest, never end. They would be his for eternity, vast, mysterious, terrifying, and beautiful. Hades stood a little apart as he always did. The helm of darkness rested against his side. His gaze was fixed not on the skies nor the seas, but downward, into the hidden places mortals could not imagine. The underworld awaited him, an empire not of glory but of inevitability. He did not protest, did not yearn for more. There was a strange peace in his stillness, as though he already carried the weight of countless souls upon his shoulders. The sisters too prepared for their roles. Hera's eyes burned with dignity, her thoughts already racing toward what Olympus would become. Demeter knelt and pressed her fingers into the soil, feeling the tender stirring of seeds eager to grow. Hestia stood before the sacred flame, her face soft with serenity, knowing her light would never waver, never dim. Together they had survived the storm. Together they would now build. Atop Olympus, Zeus raised the first palace. Not of mortal stone, nor of Titan steel, but of pure white marble that gleamed as though carved from the clouds themselves. Its columns soared high, entwined with golden vines that shimmered under the sun. Fountains burst forth, their waters flowing endlessly, neither rising nor diminishing, pure as mountain springs. Within its great hall, a throne was set, massive, carved from celestial stone, adorned with symbols of lightning and sky. When Zeus sat upon it, the winds stirred, the clouds gathered, and the stars themselves seemed to bow. But this was not merely a seat of power. It was a promise. The promise that the world would not again fall into tyranny. That the chaos of Cronus, devourer of his children, would not be repeated. That justice, not fear, would govern the cosmos. From this throne, Zeus spoke his first decree. Let Olympus be the heart of the gods. Here we shall dwell not apart but together. Our halls shall rise as one, our council shall speak as one, and though each realm belongs to its keeper, Olympus shall remain our bond. The words echoed across the mountain. The marble itself seemed to remember them. Yet Poseidon did not linger. The sea called to him with voices older than time. As the others raised their palaces, he descended Olympus and walked to the shore. The waves rushed eagerly to meet him, foaming white against the sand as though recognizing their lord. He raised his trident, and the waters parted before him. The depths revealed their secrets. Coral palaces, jeweled caverns, creatures of scales and fins that glimmered like living gems. There, in the very heart of the ocean, Poseidon built his realm. The palace of Aegis, its walls of crystal and pearl, its ceilings shimmering like the surface of water under the moon. The sea accepted him and he accepted it. No storm would rise without his will. No tide would shift without his command. And yet, even as he claimed his throne, Poseidon knew he was not bound to the depths alone. The seas touched every shore, every land, every city yet to be built. His power would reach not only across the waves, but into the lives of all mortals who gazed upon the horizon. Hades, meanwhile, departed in silence. While Olympus gleamed and the seas sparkled, his path led downward. He descended into the caverns through tunnels unlit, where the air grew heavy and the walls dripped with moisture. The earth groaned softly around him as if acknowledging his presence. At last he reached the great gates, colossal doors of bronze and shadow, older than any temple forged in the dawn of time. They opened at his touch, and the underworld unveiled itself. It was vast beyond measure. Endless plains of shadow stretched into horizons unseen. Rivers cut through the gloom. The Styx, the Acheron, the Lethe, the Cocytus, and the Phlegethon, each carrying the murmurs of countless souls. Some wept, some raged, some slept in eternal peace. Here Hades built his palace of obsidian and dark stone, not cruel nor monstrous but solemn. Its halls echoed not with laughter but with silence, its gardens filled not with blossoms but with asphodel flowers, pale and eternal. The helm rested upon his brow. Shadows gathered around him, not to hide him, but to crown him. He was king not of despair, but of inevitability. The keeper of the balance that mortals could not escape. And so, 3 thrones rose where once there had been none. The heavens for Zeus, the seas for Poseidon, the underworld for Hades. Yet all were bound to Olympus, where the flame of Hestia burned, where the council of gods would gather, where Hera would stand as queen and Demeter as guardian of harvest. Olympus became more than a mountain. It became a symbol of unity, of balance, of order. Its palaces shone like stars, its gardens bloomed with eternal spring, its fountains sang songs mortals would never hear. From its heights the gods looked down upon the world. They watched rivers carve valleys, watched trees rise, watched the first mortals stumble across the land. And in their watch they saw both beauty and fragility. The age of the Titans was over. The age of the Olympians had begun. The world had been divided. The thrones were set, the palaces raised, the boundaries of each dominion marked by fate itself. But though the lots had been drawn and the brothers had accepted them in silence, the quiet after war was never a perfect quiet. Beneath the surface of harmony, tensions stirred, subtle at first, then stronger like ripples before a storm. For how could three kings, equal in birth yet different in heart, live without shadows crossing between them? Zeus sat upon his throne atop Olympus, the thunderbolt resting across his knees. The skies stretched endless above him, stars scattered like jewels across a velvet dome. The winds obeyed his will. The clouds gathered when he summoned them, parted when he commanded. Rain fell where he wished it, lightning struck when his hand moved. Yet even in such majesty, Zeus felt the weight of expectation. The skies were vast, too vast. Every storm, every breeze, every celestial sign passed through his watch. He was no longer just a warrior who had risen in rebellion. He was now the axis of order itself. At times, he gazed down upon the earth and wondered, did his brothers resent him? He had drawn the lot of the sky, the greatest and most open of realms. Was it fate's justice or fate's cruelty that had given him such a burden? Far below, Poseidon ruled from Aegae, his palace beneath the waves. Crystal walls reflected the shimmer of sunlight filtering through water, schools of fish darted past like living rainbows, and the ocean sang an eternal song of movement and change. But Poseidon's heart was restless. The sea was boundless, yes, but it was also lonely. Mortals feared it, cursed it when storms took their ships, begged it for mercy when waves rose too high. Unlike the skies, which stretched above all and gave light to every land, the sea often stood apart, both vital and feared. At council upon Olympus, Poseidon would speak in a voice deep as rolling surf. Yet he often wondered why Zeus sat upon the highest throne, while his own realm was vast enough to swallow continents. Did the crash of waves not equal the roar of thunder? Did the trident not carry power as great as the thunderbolt? Envy whispered to him, though he tried to silence it. And then there was Hades. Deep beneath the earth he ruled, his palace a shadowed citadel among rivers of the dead. The asphodel plains stretched without end, filled with countless souls wandering softly, whispering memories that faded with time. Hades did not envy the throne of Olympus nor the palace of Aegae. His burden was heavier, though quieter. Souls arrived ceaselessly, men, women, children, kings, beggars, all equal in death. His task was not to glory in storms or seas, but to keep order among the endless tide of mortality. Yet even he was not free of bitterness. The underworld was necessary. Without him the cosmos would collapse into chaos. Yet mortals spoke his name in fear, not reverence. They left offerings for Zeus and Poseidon, but for Hades only silence, only dread. Sometimes he looked upward through caverns and cracks and thought, was my lot a fate or a punishment? The first tension surfaced not in open war but in words. The gods gathered in the great hall of Olympus, its marble walls gleaming, its ceiling painted with constellations that shifted as the stars moved. Zeus sat at the center, Hera beside him, the flame of Hestia glowing at the heart of the chamber. Poseidon spoke first. His trident rested against the floor, its tip glowing faintly with sea foam. Brother, the seas grow restless. Mortals have begun to carve small boats, daring to cross the waters. They call upon me for calm, yet they curse my name when storms rise. If I am to be lord of the sea, let my rule be known as clearly as the crack of your thunder. Zeus met his gaze steadily. Your storms are yours to command, Poseidon. No hand but yours shall stir the tides. But remember, storms are not only punishment. The seas give life as the skies give rain. Rule with both wrath and mercy. Poseidon frowned, his pride stirred. To be counseled by his younger brother, though Zeus was now king, tasted bitter. Yet he held his silence. Then Hades spoke, his voice low but resonant. And what of me? The dead flood my realm without end. Yet no offerings come to my altars. Mortals fear me, yes, but they do not honor me. Am I not one of us? Do I not guard the balance as surely as either of you? The chamber fell quiet. Hera looked at him with pity, Demeter with unease, Hestia with sorrow. Zeus did not mock him, but neither did he answer swiftly. For the truth was hard. Mortals would always fear death more than they feared storms or lightning. At last Zeus said softly, "You are necessary, brother. More than you know. Without you, life would be chaos without end. They may not praise you, but you are the foundation upon which their days rest. Your justice will echo beyond their fear." It was meant as comfort, but Hades did not smile. Shadows stirred about his cloak as he turned his gaze away. In the centuries that followed, the gods ruled their realms, yet their hearts were never wholly free of tension. When Zeus's storm struck too fiercely, Poseidon raged, claiming the skies sought to overshadow the sea. When Poseidon's waves swallowed coasts, Zeus thundered that mortals must not be drowned without cause. And Hades, ever silent, watched them both, bearing the burden of the dead who fell from storm or wave alike. Still there was no war, not yet. For though their rivalry brewed, their bond as brothers, sealed in the fires of Titanomachy, held firm. Each remembered the battle they had fought side by side, the chains cast upon Cronus, the victory that had cost them so dearly. They were rivals, yes, but they were also kin. The years flowed like rivers. Seasons turned, civilizations rose from dust and returned to it again, but Olympus endured. Above the clouds, the gods watched, each tending their realm with pride and care, yet always aware of the others, like three fires burning from the same flame. Though tension had stirred their hearts, the brothers knew the truth. The universe itself rested upon their balance. Without it, chaos would return, and the victory over the Titans would be nothing but ash upon the wind. Zeus ruled from his throne upon Olympus, the thunderbolt always within reach. Mortals raised temples to him upon hills and mountaintops, calling him Father of gods and men. They prayed for rain, for victory, for justice. His name echoed across valleys, across islands, across the farthest seas. Yet the weight of such prayers was heavy. Each plea was a thread woven into his mind. Each oath sworn under his sky bound him to judgment. When kings broke their word, when mortals defied sacred law, it was Zeus they called upon for justice. There were nights when he sat in silence, watching storms coil across the horizon, and wondered, was this truly victory? To bear the world's hopes and fears upon his shoulders? Lightning may be swift, but duty is slow, unending. He thought often of his brothers. Poseidon, free upon the waves, though restless. Hades, bound to the dead, though steady. Each had his burden just as he had his own. Beneath the surface of the seas, Poseidon roamed his palace of coral and pearl. The trident in his hand shone with power, and the waters answered his every command. Mortals prayed to him before voyages, offered sacrifices at harbors, begged his mercy when storms raged. But the seas were not always merciful. The ocean was a paradox. It gave life, it carried trade and adventure, but it also swallowed without warning. For every prayer of thanks, there was a cry of grief. For every safe return, a drowning. Poseidon felt this duality keenly. He envied at times the clear justice of Zeus, the simple necessity of Hades. His waves, however, were unpredictable even to himself. They mirrored his own moods, calm one day, furious the next. When mortals cursed his name, he clenched his jaw but did not relent. He knew the seas could not be tamed fully, not by mortals, not even by himself. But within that chaos lay his dominion, vast, unending, eternal. Deep below, Hades walked his dark halls. Torches flickered against obsidian walls, rivers whispered endlessly, and souls passed through his gates like sand through an hourglass. He rarely ascended Olympus, for the underworld never slept. Yet his absence was not neglect, it was devotion. For each soul demanded justice, and Hades gave it without passion, without hatred, without favoritism. Kings and beggars alike knelt before the same judgment. At times he longed for recognition. Not fear, not curses, but acknowledgement of the necessity of his realm. And though mortals offered little, the other gods knew his worth. In council, Zeus often deferred to him in matters of justice. Poseidon, for all his pride, admitted the seas themselves would drown in chaos without the certainty of death to measure life. And though the world above shunned him, Hades carried on, a silent pillar of order. One day, as centuries rolled into centuries, the three brothers gathered again upon Olympus. Not for war nor for division, but for remembrance. The sacred flame of Hestia burned at the heart of the hall. Hera stood beside Zeus, Demeter and Hestia with quiet dignity. The air was thick with memory, of battle, of rebellion, of victory. Zeus spoke first. His voice was steady, though softened by reflection. Brothers, the world endures because we endure together. Storm, sea, and shadow, without one the others would fall. Poseidon set his trident upon the marble floor, its ring echoing like the crash of waves. Though envy has whispered to me, though pride has stirred in my heart, I cannot deny it. The sea alone cannot sustain the world. Nor can the sky. Nor can the depths. Only together. Hades lifted his helm, holding it before him. Shadows danced upon the walls, but his voice was calm. Mortals fear me. They will always fear me. But they fear storms too, and they fear the dark sky. Fear is not division. Fear is reverence. As long as they live between us. Under your sky, upon your seas, into my halls. This is balance. They placed their hands together, thunderbolt, trident, helm. A pact renewed, an oath not of conquest but of kinship. From that day the world was secure. Not because it was free of tension, but because the brothers had chosen to rise above it. Their rivalry did not vanish, it could not. But it was bound by love, by memory, by the blood they had spilled side by side. And so the cosmos stood, steady and eternal. Zeus ruled the heavens, his storms both fearsome and life-giving. Poseidon commanded the seas, his waves both destructive and sustaining. Hades kept the underworld, his silence both terrifying and just. Together they formed a triad upon which the universe rested, sky, sea, and shadow. Mortals lived beneath them, prayed to them, cursed them, loved them, feared them. And through it all the balance held. When storms rose, when waves crashed, when death came, mortals remembered the pact of the three brothers. And though they could not see it, though they could not touch it, the oath held firm. The age of the Titans was gone. The age of the Olympians shone. And at its heart stood three brothers, bound not just by fate but by choice. Olympus rose like a crown upon the world. Its peaks, still scarred by the fires of war, now gleamed with marble palaces, gardens of eternal bloom and fountains whose waters shimmered like liquid crystal. What had once been a mountain of storms and hidden mists was now a city of gods, radiant, untouchable, and eternal. The halls of Zeus soared highest, white marble entwined with veins of gold, columns so tall they seemed to pierce the very sky. His throne sat at the heart of the great hall, carved from celestial stone, pulsing faintly with the echo of thunder. From here, Zeus presided not as a warrior but as a king. His voice carried across Olympus, calm yet commanding, firm yet just. But Olympus was not his alone. Beside his palace, Hera's halls gleamed with majesty. Draped in tapestries of crimson and ivory, adorned with crowns of laurel and lotus, her chambers radiated authority. Hera was not merely queen by marriage. She was the guardian of order in the bonds of love and family. Her gaze was sharp, her words unyielding. None dared dismiss her voice in council, for she held dignity like a weapon. Further down the slope, Demeter tended vast gardens, orchards heavy with fruit, fields golden with wheat, vines swelling with grapes. She touched the earth and it blossomed. Birds nested in her groves, streams sang through her meadows, and mortals would one day look to her as the bringer of harvest, their sustenance, their survival. At the heart of Olympus, where all paths converged, Hestia's flame burned. A small fire, simple in appearance, yet eternal. No wind could extinguish it, no rain could dim it. Around it the gods gathered in council. Around it oaths were sworn, disputes ended, and harmony restored. The sound of music soon joined the murmur of the winds. Apollo, radiant as the sun, strummed his lyre, filling the air with melodies that softened even the sternest hearts. His twin, Artemis, strode through the forests of Olympus, her bow upon her shoulder, her hounds at her side, her steps as silent as moonlight. Hermes darted between them, swift and clever, bearing messages, laughter, and sometimes mischief. Athena, wise and watchful, stood tall in gleaming armor, her gray eyes sharp with thought, her hands shaping strategies not of war alone, but of knowledge, law, and craft. One by one Olympus filled, not with mortals but with immortals. Each god brought their essence, their light, their presence. The mountain, once silent, now pulsed like a living heart, each beat a song of divinity. Zeus summoned them all to his hall. The air shimmered with their presence, the marble glowing brighter as if feeding on their radiance. The thunderbolt rested at Zeus's side, the trident of Poseidon leaned against a column, the helm of Hades cast its faint shadow at the edge of the circle. Around the fire of Hestia, the gods sat in solemn council. Zeus spoke first. Brothers, sisters, children of fate, the war is behind us. The Titans lie bound in Tartarus, and the world now breathes under our watch. But peace is not eternal unless we guard it. Olympus must stand not only as our home, but as the heart of order. His voice rolled like thunder, but it was steady, not wrathful. Hera raised her chin, her crown gleaming. Order begins not only with law, but with unity. Let no god act in defiance of Olympus. Let no power be raised against another in pride or envy. If we are to endure, we must rule together. Poseidon, leaning heavily on his trident, nodded slowly. The seas obey me, but they are vast. Mortals will cross them, build upon them, depend upon them. My storms must serve more than wrath, they must serve balance. If Olympus commands it, I will wield them so. Hades, cloaked in silence, spoke softly. And the underworld shall remain closed to rebellion. The Titans are chained, their cries echoing in the darkness. I will guard them. I will guard the dead. But do not forget, all roads end in my halls. Respect the balance, and my judgment will remain steady. The fire crackled, casting warm shadows. Apollo strummed his lyre gently. Then let Olympus not only rule with thunder and trident, but with song and light. Let mortals look upon us not only in fear but in awe. Athena added, her voice sharp yet calm. Strength without wisdom falls to ruin. Let our decrees be thought, not impulse. Let us be guardians, not tyrants. Hermes smirked, his eyes glinting. And let us not forget, mortals need guidance they can understand. Who better than I to carry our words? I'll whisper them in dreams, carve them in winds, scatter them in echoes across the world. Laughter rippled lightly, easing the solemnity. Even Zeus allowed himself a smile. And so it was agreed. Olympus would not be a throne alone, but a council. A chorus of gods, each with voice, each with duty, each with place. After the council, the gods descended into the world below. The earth lay scarred by the Titan war, rivers still thick with ash, mountains split by fire, plains burned and barren. Mortals, fragile and trembling, had begun to rise, small tribes huddled in caves, their fires flickering weakly against the dark. Demeter was the first to step forward. She spread her hands and seeds burst into bloom. Wheat bent golden in the wind, orchards blossomed with fruit, vines coiled heavy with grapes. Mortals gasped, their eyes wide with wonder, as hunger gave way to abundance. Poseidon struck the earth with his trident, and springs erupted from stone. Rivers ran clear again, lakes filled with fish, and seas grew calm, their tides gentle. Fishermen ventured upon the waters, their nets heavy, their voices lifted in praise. Olympus gleamed, eternal above the clouds. But peace, even in the age of gods, was fragile. The scars of war still lingered, not only in the mountains and seas, but in the hearts of those who had fought. Titans imprisoned in Tartarus roared in fury, their cries rumbling through the earth like distant storms. Monsters born of chaos crept in shadows, stirring restlessly. And among mortals, who had only just begun to lift their eyes in prayer, there lingered both awe and doubt. Zeus sat upon his throne, the thunderbolt resting at his side. His gaze swept the horizon, ever watchful. Though Olympus sang with laughter and light, his heart carried the weight of vigilance. For he knew, order must be defended again and again. Deep within the earth, Gaia stirred. The mother of all who had birthed the Titans, still wept for her children imprisoned in Tartarus. Though her love for the earth endured, her grief sharpened into bitterness. She whispered to the shadows, to the mountains, to the fires beneath the soil. And from those whispers arose new terrors. The first were the giants, towering beings born of earth and sky, whose strength rivaled even that of the gods. Their feet shook the ground, their voices cracked the sky, and their eyes burned with defiance. The gods have stolen the throne, they cried, but the blood of Gaia still flows in us. We will rise. The second was Typhon, though his coming would be later, vast and terrible, a storm of chaos made flesh. For now Gaia's whispers seeded unrest, her grief planting the roots of rebellion that would one day challenge Olympus itself. Even before the giants stirred, other children of chaos wandered the world. Creatures of many heads, serpents with wings, beasts that devoured fire, all remnants of the primordial age. Mortals trembled before them, their villages torn apart, their altars trampled under claw and fang. It was Artemis who first took to the forests, her bow in hand, her arrows silver bright beneath the moon. She hunted the beasts, swift as shadow, silent as night. Where mortals had hidden in fear, they now raised their eyes, seeing her light like a silver flame guiding them. Apollo too lifted his bow, but his arrows carried not only death, but healing. He drove away pestilence, soothed the sick, taught men the arts of medicine. Where his sister brought safety, he brought renewal. Athena devised strategies. She taught mortals to build walls of stone, to dig trenches, to wield spear and shield with wisdom rather than rage. She turned fear into discipline, panic into defense. And in doing so, mortals became not only survivors but creators of order. Zeus, when storms of chaos threatened, hurled his thunderbolt. Lightning split mountains, fire cleansed valleys, and silence followed where once there had been destruction. Mortals saw, and though fear gripped them, they also felt awe. "He is protector," they whispered. "He is storm, but he is also shield." Yet the greatest unrest came not from the land but from the sea. Poseidon, though lord of the oceans, found the waters restless. Currents shifted unpredictably, waves rose without cause, storms thundered though he had not willed them. Something stirred in the deep, something ancient. In hidden trenches, monsters like Scylla and Charybdis awoke. Vast serpents coiled in darkness, their eyes glowing like lanterns in the abyss. Ships of mortals, fragile as leaves, were swallowed whole. Poseidon, striking the waters with his trident, calmed the waves when he could. But the sea was vast, and even his dominion had limits. He returned to Olympus, his brow furrowed, his voice heavy. "The sea is restless," he warned. "Not by my hand but by the remnants of chaos. The deep remembers what Olympus has forgotten. If we do not guard it, it may rise against us." Zeus listened, his expression stern. "Then guard it we must," he said. "Olympus rules not only in heaven but in every realm." And so Poseidon swore to patrol the deeps, to tame the restless waters, to keep monsters chained beneath waves. But he knew, the sea was never truly silent. Even among immortals, harmony was delicate. Though they had sworn unity, pride simmered. Ares, the god of war, longed for conflict. He paced Olympus like a caged beast, eager for battle, impatient with peace. "Mortals grow soft," he muttered. "Without war they will forget the gods." Athena countered him calmly. "Strength without wisdom is ruin. To seek war for war's sake is folly." Their clashes shook council meetings, Athena's reason against Ares' fury, her sharp gaze against his blazing eyes. Zeus often had to thunder his voice to silence them, but beneath the surface the rivalry endured. Hera too grew restless. Though queen of Olympus, she saw Zeus's wandering gaze, his heart drawn too often to mortal women, to goddesses beyond their halls. Her jealousy burned, her pride wounded. Yet her power did not diminish. If anything, her wrath grew sharp, shaping fates, weaving curses, teaching mortals that love was not without consequence. Even in Olympus, shadows lingered. The gods were not flawless. They were not perfect. They were vast as the cosmos itself. And their flaws, like their strengths, would shape the tales of mortals for ages to come. Still order held. Zeus remained vigilant. Each night he rose to the peak of Olympus, the stars wheeling above him. He listened to the murmurs of the wind, the whispers of rivers, the cries of mortals, the silence of the dead. His thunderbolt glowed faintly in his hand, but he did not strike. He only watched and he only waited. For Zeus knew, The reign of Olympus was young. The Titans were chained but not gone. Chaos had retreated but not vanished. The sea still stirred, the earth still grieved, the shadows still whispered. And so he remained watchful, the guardian not only of thunder but of balance. The smoke of war had cleared. The cries of Titans chained in Tartarus had faded into distant echoes. The monsters of chaos slumbered once more in hidden corners of the earth and sea. And so a quieter age began. Not silent, not empty, but gentler, filled with the first songs of mortals, the first prayers rising on the wind, the first altars carved from stone. The reign of the Olympians was no longer only a story of thunder and battle. It was a story of devotion, of trust, of fragile beings lifting their eyes to the sky and whispering the names of gods. At first worship was simple. Mortals gathered in groves, beside rivers, or upon mountain slopes. They offered fruit, grain, and the smoke of burning herbs. Their voices trembled, unsure if the gods heard. But the gods did hear. Zeus listened from Olympus, his thunder rumbling softly in approval when mortals prayed for rain, or for justice in disputes. Poseidon stirred the seas when fishermen cast their nets and whispered thanks. Demeter's touch ripened fields when farmers left offerings of wheat. Soon groves became sacred. Stones were stacked into circles. Fires were kept burning. And then mortals built temples. The first were humble, wooden beams, straw roofs, altars of rough stone. But as generations passed, their devotion grew. Columns rose tall and white against the sky. Marble gleamed in the sun. Gold shimmered on statues shaped in the likeness of gods. The temple of Zeus at Olympia became a wonder, its columns vast as trees, its statue radiant with ivory and gold. The temple of Hera, serene and solemn, welcomed those who prayed for marriage, for family, for protection. Each god received a place of honor, each shrine filled with offerings of grain, honey, wine, and sacrifice. The gods, gazing down, felt not only pride but a deepened bond. For the voices of mortals, fragile yet sincere, gave strength to their names. With temples came songs. Bards traveled from city to city, lyres in hand, voices rising in hymns. They sang of Zeus the thunderer, Hera the queen, Athena the wise, Apollo the radiant, Artemis the huntress, Poseidon the earth shaker. Their melodies drifted across valleys and seas, carrying stories to places the eye could not reach. Children listened by firelight, their eyes wide. Elders nodded, adding their own verses. And soon stories grew, not just hymns of praise but myths. Some told of the Titanomachy, how the gods rose from shadows to bring light. Others told of tricksters like Hermes, or of punishments like Prometheus chained to rock. Still others wove tales of love, jealousy, revenge, and reconciliation. Each story was more than memory. It was medicine. It soothed fears. It gave meaning to storms, to drought, to sudden fortune, to sudden loss. Where mortals once saw only chaos, they now saw the will of gods. And so, the myths of Olympus spread, living, breathing, shaping cultures that would endure for millennia. But the age of worship was not only about temples and hymns. It was also the age when mortals rose beyond themselves, guided, tested, and sometimes tormented by the gods. These were the heroes. Not quite gods, yet not quite ordinary men. Born often of divine parentage or chosen by destiny, they walked the line between mortal and immortal. Heracles, the strongest of men, bore the weight of 12 impossible labors, guided by both Zeus's will and Hera's fury. Perseus, born of Danae and Zeus, faced Medusa, whose gaze turned men to stone. Theseus, aided by Poseidon and Athena, entered labyrinths of shadow and emerged triumphant. Heroes were mortal, yet their deeds echoed like thunder. They carried the stories of gods into the lives of men, making the divine tangible, visible, embodied in courage and sacrifice. For mortals, these heroes were proof. The gods walked among them. The boundary between heaven and earth was not a wall, but a veil, thin and shimmering, easily crossed when destiny called. The Olympians did not only demand worship, they also gave gifts. Demeter taught mortals to cultivate fields, to harvest in seasons, to store grain for winter. From her wisdom came bread, the food that sustained civilizations. Dionysus brought vines heavy with grapes, taught men to ferment wine, and with it gave not only drink, but ritual, song, and ecstasy. His festivals lit nights with laughter and music, reminding mortals that joy, too, was sacred. Athena gifted the olive tree, its oil golden and eternal. She taught weaving, pottery, shipbuilding, strategy. Under her hand, mortals learned not only to survive, but to create. Apollo gave music, poetry, prophecy. His oracle at Delphi whispered truths and riddles, guiding kings, warriors, and wanderers alike. Even Hephaestus, scarred and cast from Olympus, offered fire and forge. His hands shaped bronze into weapons, gold into ornaments, clay into vessels. From his craft, cities rose, defenses grew strong, and beauty adorned the mortal world. These gifts were more than tools. They were bridges. Each act of creation tied mortals closer to immortals. Each festival, each harvest, each song, was both survival and devotion. In this age, mortals learned to read the whispers of gods not only in temples but in dreams. At night, when fire burned low and silence wrapped the earth, mortals closed their eyes and drifted into visions. Some saw thunderclouds and lightning and knew Zeus was watching. Others dreamed of seas swelling and ships trembling, and understood Poseidon's warning. Still others heard music, soft and golden, and felt Apollo's blessing. Birds in flight, patterns of stars, the rustle of leaves, the crack of thunder, all became messages. Priests and seers interpreted them, weaving mortal life into divine design. And though not every dream was true, not every omen clear, the very act of searching bound mortals more tightly to the gods. For in every rustle, every whisper, they felt the presence of Olympus. Worship was not only adoration, it was also fear. Mortals knew the gods could bless, but also punish. Storms could flatten fields. Seas could swallow fleets. Disease could strike, sudden and merciless. Crops could wither beneath unyielding sun. But fear did not drive mortals away. Instead it bound them closer. For in fear there was respect. And in respect, devotion. They prayed not only in gratitude but in pleading. They sacrificed not only in joy but in desperation. And through this delicate balance, fear and love, awe and trust, the gods secured their reign. And so the age of worship unfolded. Mortals built temples, sang hymns, told myths. Heroes rose and fell. Gifts were given, omens read, festivals danced beneath moonlight. On Olympus the gods looked down. They no longer ruled only through thunder and war. They ruled through story, song, ritual, and memory. Their names echoed not only in battle cries but in lullabies. The reign of the Olympians was no longer only the reign of gods. It was the reign of belief, vast, enduring, unshakable. And as stars turned slowly across the heavens, Zeus leaned back upon his throne watching. His thunderbolt glowed softly beside him, but he did not raise it. For he knew, the greatest power was not always in storm but in silence. In the whisper of a mortal voice offering thanks. In the song of a child calling his name before sleep. This was Olympus at peace. This was the harmony of gods and men. The reign of the Olympians was secure. The Titans lay chained in Tartarus. The world was divided. Zeus held the skies, Poseidon ruled the seas, Hades governed the underworld. Mortals had begun to worship, temples had risen, myths were sung, and heroes walked among men. And yet, above and beyond even the will of the gods, there was something greater, something eternal, something silent and unbreakable. It was fate. High above Olympus, in a place neither mortal nor divine, sat three sisters, the Moirai, the Fates. Clotho, the spinner, drew threads of life from her distaff, each glowing strand the soul of a mortal, or the destiny of a god. Lachesis, the measurer, stretched each thread between her hands, determining its length, its course, its possibilities. And Atropos, stern and silent, held the shears of inevitability. When the time came she cut and the thread ended. Not even Zeus, king of Olympus, could overrule them. He could guide, he could delay, he could shape the storms of heaven and the trials of men, but the Moirai held the final word. It was said that even his thunderbolt dimmed in their presence. The three brothers, Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, each knew this truth. Their power was vast, their reign eternal in the eyes of mortals. But in the loom of fate they were threads like any other. And so they lived, not only as rulers, but as guardians of balance, careful never to push too far against the fabric of destiny. Mortals too felt the pull of fate. From Delphi the oracle of Apollo whispered riddles that shaped kingdoms. Kings and wanderers alike climbed the mountain paths, carrying questions of war, harvest, love, and legacy. And though Apollo's priestess spoke in human voice, many believed it was the Moirai themselves who guided her tongue. In Dodona, sacred oaks rustled in the wind, their leaves whispering the will of Zeus. Priests listened, heads bowed, translating the murmur of branches into prophecy. Even deep in the caves of the earth, shadows cast omens of Hades' dominion, reminding mortals that death was never far, and that life itself was but a fragile thread on the loom. The oracles did not promise comfort. They did not promise victory. They promised truth, veiled, mysterious, yet undeniable. And mortals listened. Because to live without listening, to live without acknowledging fate, was to walk blind into chaos. Zeus ruled from Olympus, his throne gleaming among clouds, thunderbolt always at his side. Poseidon roamed the seas, his trident stirring waves, his voice echoing in storms. Hades sat upon his dark throne, the helm of invisibility resting beside him, the shades of mortals flowing endlessly through his kingdom. 3 realms, 3 powers, 3 brothers. And though they rarely stood together, though their domains were far apart, they were bound by unspoken unity. The cosmos required their balance. If Zeus faltered, storms of chaos would unravel the heavens. If Poseidon raged unchecked, seas would drown the earth. If Hades grew careless, souls would wander and death itself would lose its order. Each brother carried his burden in solitude. Yet in the quiet of eternity, each knew he was not alone. For their bond was older than their crowns. It was forged in prophecy, in rebellion, in shared triumph over Cronus. They were not just rulers. They were pillars. Together they upheld the universe. Time passed. Seasons turned. Heroes rose and fell. Cities thrived and crumbled. Mortals lived, prayed, died. But Olympus endured. On nights when the sky was clear, Zeus would gaze down from his throne and watch the flicker of firelight in mortal homes. He would hear prayers whispered before sleep, names carried softly on the wind. Beneath the waves, Poseidon would feel the weight of ships cutting through his waters, hear the laughter of sailors, the cries of fishermen, the chants of coastal villages singing to the sea. And in the depths, Hades would sit in silence, listening to the endless procession of souls, farmers, warriors, kings, children, all threads returning to the tapestry from which they came. The three brothers, though apart, were forever present. In storm and silence, in wave and tide, in life and death. The reign of the Olympians was more than power. It was story. It was memory. It was the gentle whisper of myths told by firelight, the echo of hymns sung in temples, the dreams of mortals who looked to the heavens and wondered. Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, kings of sky, sea, and underworld, were not just rulers of realms. They were guardians of order, weavers of meaning, reflections of the eternal balance between chaos and creation. And though the Moirai still spun their threads, though destiny held even the gods in its hand, their names endured. Because as long as mortals prayed, as long as stories were told, as long as thunder rolled across mountains, waves crashed upon shores, and shadows lingered in valleys, the brothers would live on. Now, imagine the universe in stillness. The clouds drift quietly around Olympus, golden in the fading sun. Beneath the surface of the sea, coral glows with hidden light, schools of fish move like living constellations. Deep in the underworld, rivers flow silently, guiding souls to their rest. The brothers watch, each from his throne. They do not speak, but their presence hums through creation. Zeus with the calm weight of the skies. Poseidon with the ceaseless rhythm of the sea. Hades with the solemn silence of eternity. Three brothers, three realms, one destiny. And so, as stars shimmer above, the story closes, not with thunder, not with storm, not with shadow, but with peace. Peace that stretches across heaven, earth, and underworld. Peace that whispers into the heart of mortals. Peace that invites you now to rest. Close your eyes. Breathe softly. Let the story fade into silence. For the three brothers still watch, and they will guard your dreams tonight.